Today we are joined by David Chambers, the Director of Partner Solutions here at Claravine. David has over 20 years of experience in digital advertising, from display and ad serving to SEM and SEO. And over the last 6 years, he's been focused on programmatic optimization and has experienced firsthand the impact of excellent and lousy metadata taxonomy. So our topic today is programmatic advertising and data governance. This presentation will address methods to track and manage your data so that it can be used to get the most out of your programmatic advertising and your marketing dollars. We would love to hear your thoughts on any of the topics addressed today. So if you have any questions throughout this presentation, please leave them in the comments and we would be happy to answer them there. And with that, I will hand it over to David.
Great. Thanks, Casey. So, like Casey said, today's topic is programmatic advertising and the importance of data governance using that. I'm going to go through 4 sections loosely, talking about breaking down your creative, talking about your data, and then discussing taxonomy and how that improves things. And then, of course, getting to some conclusions. So the most important thing I think that I can stress is that programmatic, whether you know it or not, is driven entirely by taxonomy. And that is either by the lack thereof or by the presence thereof, because the internet is built of a bunch of parts, as we all know. It's pieces that are pulled in from different locations sometimes, pulled in from your digital asset management platform, and comprised into a unit, whether that's a web page or whether that's a programmatic ad. So if we think about the programmatic ad, it is a piece of really expensive real estate that lives out on the internet someplace. You have bought this expensive real estate and you want to put something there. So if we bought a plot of land by the beach, we would want to put a really great beach house on it and not a yurt. And so this is a situation where you've spent a lot of money on a specific thing, and you want to make sure you put the best possible foot forward, the best possible message to your consumer. And the way that you do that is by using data. And so if we think about data as the key to success, there's 2 things that are the keys. One, data, period. If you're not tracking who comes to your website, if you're not tracking how people interact with your advertisements, if you're not doing that, you need to. So do that. GA4 is free, so get some analytics in place. But then also think about the things that comprise your advertisement and the thing that you're putting out there to draw consumers to you. So it is, like, as I said, comprised of parts. These are parts that create an advertisement for you. If we think about that, is what I would call the semantic ad. So an ad is not the things that are in it. It is pieces. So there's a logo, there's a background color, there's a CTA, and all of those things are drawn from your data asset platform. And if you don't know specifics about what those pieces are, then you're missing an opportunity to better optimize the thing that you're putting in front of consumers. So if we think about that semantic ad, uh, we think about wanting to establish some taxonomy around that. So basically, you're taking all of those pieces, so that CTA from the bottom of that ad, and you want to assign pieces of data that will help you identify that, pieces of data that make that pieces of data that make that CTA a unicorn, so that you always know that when you are running that particular call to action and that particular color of button, that you're tracking the response to folks as they do that. So the establishing a taxonomy early on is really important, and building that taxonomy into your data platform is incredibly important, because otherwise you're just throwing stuff up and hoping it works. And if it does work, you may not know why it worked, or you may not have a hypothesis around the success or failure of that. So if we think about looking at programmatic out in the world, like, we should think about, every time we see an ad, we should think about dollar signs. You spent $8 on that ad. You spent $12 on that ad because it was very specifically targeted. you spent $4 on some ad somewhere because uh, you are requesting users, and therefore you are having to pay for those specific users. So, as we run those ads, we need to think about whether we can effectively monetize the dollars that we're throwing into buying that real estate. So, how do we do that? Well, one of the first things that you can think about as far as the data period piece is first party cookies. Third party cookies are going away. We know that third party cookies are going away. Third party cookies made advertising just on a whole in the internet super easy. Uh, but it is, it's important. Privacy is a concern of everyone that uses the internet, and so we need to respond to that. First party cookies are a great way to do that. Someone has engaged with your website. Someone has come there and they are seeking content. What do you know about them? Find out stuff. What are they responding to? What are they seeing on your site? What products are they engaging with? That's data that you can save and remember in that analytics platform that you have, and then we're going to be able to marry that to the taxonomy that we're going to build against our data assets. So if we think about the first party cookie, and then we think about the way that we can monetize that through making sure that the content is being tracked correctly, but also making sure that our marketing operations are being tracked correctly, so that digital asset management solution that you have in place has all sorts of pieces of data that are associated with it. The couple on the beach at sunset versus the couple on the beach at noon, two different assets may draw two different reactions from consumers out in the World Wide Web. Uh, but you want to be able to know, okay, so couple on the beach at sunset got a great response on social, but it didn't do so well in display. Couple on the beach at noon did really great in display and as pre-roll, but maybe didn't do so great in social. So these are all things that you need to make sure that you categorized so that you can remember them and so that you can form hypotheses to test against. So what does that cataloging of those assets achieve? Well, one, you're never going to lose your assets, and that's really important. So, if you had a campaign that worked great last President's Day, you want to make sure that this President's Day, you're going to start knowing that that campaign worked great. So, you've got a preset stake in the ground that you can say, this worked well. I'm going to see whether people in 2022 respond just as well as people in 2021 responded to my President's Day ads. So you've got the cataloging. You can be able to know what grouping of those digital assets worked well. You can also form hypotheses around the digital assets that you're putting out into the world to see what might work well in the future. So how is that data going to be used? Well, there's three places where you can use that data. One is called a walled garden, and we all know those. Those are Google, those are Facebook. Those are people that are going to take your first party cookie, attach it to information that they have about users, and use that to drive your ad forward. There's the backyard garden, which is that place where you are able to see the consumer interact with your brand on your website and perhaps show them ads live while they're interacting with the website to draw them into other parts. So they bought boots, why don't we show them socks? But then there's also the farmers market. And the farmers market I'm saying is, and that's, I don't know, TM, Dave Chambers. But the farmers market is the idea that you are paying someone else to do this work, whether they put it into the walled garden, whether they buy networks someplace else, whether they buy direct to site, but they're doing the piece. So you're marrying your first party data and your digital assets. They still would be really excited to know that your digital assets have a specific taxonomy around them to be able to identify what's working. So we're using those, and then we're creating ads based on where we're placing those ads. And so again, if we think about that semantic ad, we've got a headline. A headline is part of our digital asset library. That's headline secondary, also part of the digital asset library. So that when we're drawing those assets together, we're paying attention to all of that taxonomy that we've put in place to make sure that the ad that we're creating is on the theme of whatever hypothesis we created. People that buy uh, tennis shoes might want to buy socks. That's our hypothesis. So if we put that out there, then we make sure that we're advertising the sock image as our graphic primary. So how does it work? This is really basic. I'm not explaining this on a level that a Python engineer is going to probably think is at all good. But basically, you're drawing creative assets, you're drawing products, two different databases, lots of taxonomy associated with them. You're putting them into a single core system and then pulling those ads. And so whether you're using the farmers market model that I'm talking about, or whether you're doing it yourself, something is synthesizing that ad and then pushing it forward. And with that, you have created the single instance of this ad that is perfectly designed to hit that consumer at that moment for to achieve the goal that you're trying to get to. So that taxonomy lets you have a single treatment of a creative, but then alter it based on specifics that you want to target to that consumer at that moment. So if we think about a really basic version of this, same headline, same CTA, but one time we're showing somebody a stove and the other time we're showing somebody a fridge. And that's based on the information that we may have about them or based on something that we're trying to test. So we know that somebody bought a stove already and maybe they want to buy a fridge. So these are things that were allowing us to start from a baseline and then test a thing. So in conclusion, what have I said over and over again throughout this is data taxonomy wins the day. Being able to really know what assets you are using and being able to know what things that you're placing into that advertisement are crucial to you being able to speak to that consumer at that moment in time on President's Day and be able to get the goal that you're trying to achieve, whether that's website views or branding or what have you. So maximizing your media spend is the keys are data period, data taxonomy, and if you put them together, you're going to have an effective experience, and that is crucial to your success in future. And I'm not going to say I guarantee it, but I'm pretty much going to say I guarantee it. And with that, I thank you for your time and thank you for spending 10 minutes with me talking about programmatic advertising.